All right, so we're diving deep into the State Bank of India's Q2 FY25 financials today.
Yeah, we've got a lot to unpack here.
We do. Analyst questions, the official press release, even a presentation made for investors.
It's going to be interesting to see how SBI is spinning things alongside the raw numbers.
Exactly. And one thing that jumped out right away, SBI hit a huge GE milestone this quarter. Over 51 trillion total deposits.
Wow.
That's wild. Makes you wonder what's driving that kind of growth.
We got to remember, SBI holds something like 22% of all deposits in India,
They're the biggest player, huh?
by far. So when they see growth like this, it's a signal about the whole Indian economy, not just SBI.
Makes sense. If people are trusting SBI with their money, they must be feeling pretty good about things in general.
Exactly. It's broader economic confidence at play.
So it's not just SBI's success story, it's India's too.
Precisely.
Okay, but let's get into the specifics here. Net profit for Q2 FY25, a whopping 18,331 crore.
That's almost a 28% jump year on year. Impressive.
Yeah, a lot of that's driven by their loan portfolio. They're giving out more loans than ever, nearly 15% increase year on year.
Which again suggests confidence. Businesses and individuals are borrowing to invest, to expand.
They're putting that money to work.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets kind of interesting. SBI's got a lot of money set aside in provisions, like a huge amount.
You're talking about the buffer against bad loans, right?
Yeah, the non-performing asset provisions. It's actually 153% more than their total net NPAs.
That's a clear sign they're being very cautious.
So it's like they're anticipating things might go south.
Right, preparing for potential economic headwinds, prioritizing stability over maybe maximizing short-term profits.
Makes sense in this global climate. You got to have a safety net.
Exactly.
Okay, so breaking down the loans a bit, SBI is seeing growth across all L segments: personal, agriculture, SME, corporate. Anything particularly noteworthy there?
Well, one detail that stands out is the portion of corporate loans going to PSUs and government departments. It's around 42%.
Wow, that's a big chunk.
It is. Reflects SBI's unique position in the Indian system. They're deeply tied to government initiatives.
So on the one hand, those loans are probably pretty safe, right? Backed by the government.
You'd assume so, yes.
But it also means they're really sensitive to what happens with government finances.
True. It's like a concentrated bet on the public sector.
Do other banks have this much exposure to the government?
It really varies. Some private banks might focus more on things like real estate or infrastructure.
So you got to look at the whole portfolio, see how diversified they are.
Exactly. Risk Assessment 101.
Okay, back to that incredible deposit growth for a sec. Over 51 trillion. That's mind-blowing. What's fueling it? Just their massive branch network.
Partly, sure. Over 22,000 branches across India. That reach is huge.
But there's got to be more to it, right?
Oh, definitely. Term deposits are up over 12.5%, which is good. But the really interesting part is the surge in current account deposits. Over 10% growth year on year.
Now, I got to admit, I'm not a finance whiz. What makes those current account deposits so special?
Well, they're mainly used by businesses for day-to-day operations, right? So it means there's a lot of economic activity happening, and that money tends to be stickier than, say, just someone's personal savings account.
So businesses are trusting SBI with their operational cash flow. That's a big vote of confidence.
Absolutely. Shows a high level of trust and also signals a bustling economy.
Okay, now the big question everyone always has about banks, asset quality. SBI's gross NPA ratio is down to 2.13%, and their net NPA is just 0.53%.
Those are healthy numbers for sure.
Are they good compared to other banks, though?
Oh yeah, much lower than the average for public sector banks in India.
So it's not just that they have low NPAs right now, but they're also really good at managing risk overall.
Exactly. Remember all those provisions we talked about? That proactive approach is paying off.
They're prepared for whatever comes their way. Smart move.
Definitely. It makes them more resilient, more stable, and that's attractive to investors.
Okay, now I want to talk about the thing that's changing everything in banking, the digital revolution. SBI is pushing hard on this, right?
Oh, absolutely. Over 98% of their transactions are now happening through alternate channels. Online, mobile, it's a huge shift.
Practically everyone's gone digital.
Pretty much. And it's not just about convenience either. They're actually attracting new customers through digital. 61% of new savings accounts opened in Q2 were through their YONO platform.
That's incredible. YONO is more than just an app. It's like their secret weapon.
It's definitely a key part of their growth strategy. We'll dive deeper into YONO's features and functionality in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. I'm eager to learn more about how SBI is using technology to shape the future of banking.
Just fascinating stuff. But before we move on, let's touch on something that's increasingly important to a lot of folks, sustainability and social responsibility.
Yeah, beyond just the raw financials, how's SBI doing in that area?
Well, we already mentioned their impressive renewable energy financing portfolio. Over 60,865 crore. That's contributing to over 34 gigawatt of clean energy capacity.
Wow, that's huge. They're putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak.
Right, and they're not stopping there. They're also very active in promoting financial inclusion through their vast network, especially in rural areas. Over 80,000 customer service points.
Oh, so they're not just a financial powerhouse, they're also trying to make a real difference in people's lives.
Exactly. That's something that's becoming more and more important for businesses to thrive in the long run.
It's good to see SBI leading the charge on that front.
Definitely. It's a win-win for everyone involved.
Okay, so back to the digital stuff. In part one, we were talking about how SBI is just killing it with digital banking. Something like 98% of their transactions aren't even happening in person anymore.
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable transformation they've pulled off.
It really is. But, it's not just about having an app, right? What makes SBI's digital strategy so different, so successful?
Well, a few things, I think. They've obviously invested a ton in building the tech infrastructure. It's got to be super robust to handle the volume they're dealing with. I mean, Yono alone has over 8 crore registered users.
And it's growing all the time. We saw that 61% of new savings accounts in Q2 were opened through Yono.
Exactly. So they're clearly doing something right to attract all these new customers.
So what is it about Yono that's so appealing?
Well, first off, it's just super user-friendly. You don't have to be a tech whiz to figure it out.
Makes sense. You want to make it easy for everyone to use.
Exactly. But it's not just basic banking stuff either. They've packed it with features, investments, insurance, loans. You can do it all right there in the app.
So it's like a one-stop shop for all your financial needs.
Yep, exactly. No need to go to different branches or juggle a bunch of different apps. Plus, they're using data to personalize the experience. You get tailored offers based on your usage.
No, so it's getting smarter as you use it.
Right. It learns and adapts to you, which is something people really expect these days.
Makes it feel more personal, too, not just some generic app.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're going for.
Okay, but let's not forget about their other digital channels, too. They're also leading in debit card spends, ATM transactions. It's a whole ecosystem.
Oh, for sure. Their ATM network is still a huge asset, especially in places where cash is king. Over 63,000 machines across the country. And they've been all over the UPI revolution as well.
Right. For those who don't know, what's UPI and why does it matter?
UPI, Unified Payments Interface, it's basically mobile-based instant payments. A total game changer in India. You can send and receive money instantly, super easy, just using a virtual address.
And SBI has been a big part of making that happen.
Huge. They've pushed UPI adoption like crazy. It's accessible to millions now, even in remote areas. Plus, they're using it to expand internationally. Cross-border payments to Singapore, Nepal, even France.
So they're taking their digital success global.
Yep, they're thinking ahead, that's for sure.
But what does all this mean for the future of banking in India? Is SBI setting the bar for everyone else?
I think they are, yeah. Other banks are definitely playing catch-up, investing in their own digital stuff to stay competitive.
It's like a digital arms race.
Kinda, yeah. But that's good for consumers ultimately, right? More options, better services.
Hopefully better prices, too.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But think about it. In a few years, banking might be completely different than what we're used to.
AI doing all the work, robots giving out loans.
Well, maybe not that extreme.
Yeah.
But definitely more AI-powered tools to help you manage your money. Chatbots for customer service. Maybe even voice-activated banking.
Bro, that's wild. Banking from your couch just by talking.
Exactly. That's the kind of stuff we're heading towards.
But as things get more digital, isn't there more risk, too? Security breaches, data theft, that stuff makes me nervous.
Oh, definitely a valid concern. And SBI's taking it seriously.
Yeah.
They've got all kinds of cybersecurity measures in place. Encryption, multi-factor authentication, the works.
So they're doing their part.
They are, but we got to do our part too. Strong passwords, being aware of phishing scams,
Yeah.
The basics.
It's a shared responsibility, I guess.
Exactly. We can't just rely on the banks to protect us. We got to be smart too.
Okay, good to know. But overall, it seems like SBI's digital push is good news for everyone. More convenience, more choices.
And hopefully more innovation. They're definitely pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah, it's exciting to see where things go from here.
Definitely.
Okay, let's shift gears now. We talked in part one about SBI's sustainability efforts, their renewable energy portfolio, all that. But I want to dig a little deeper. What else are they doing to make a positive impact beyond just profits?
Right. Well, the renewable energy financing is huge, like we said, over 60,865 core. But they're also making changes internally to reduce their own impact. They're aiming for net zero emissions by 2030.
Now, net zero, that's the big buzzword these days.
Yeah.
For those who aren't familiar, what does that actually mean?
Basically, it means balancing out the greenhouse gases you're putting into the atmosphere with the amount you're removing. Like if you're still emitting some, you're offsetting it by planting trees, investing in carbon capture tech, stuff like that.
So it's not just about reducing emissions, it's about neutralizing them completely.
Yeah, it's the goal everyone's working towards to fight climate change.
Hmm.
And SBI is taking it seriously.
But how are they actually going to get to net zero?
Well, they've got a bunch of things going on, making their buildings more energy efficient, switching to renewable energy sources for their own operations, pushing sustainable transportation with things like e-car loans, even rainwater harvesting to save water.
So it's a whole bunch of little things adding up.
Yeah, exactly. The holistic approach.
Impressive. But let's not forget about the social impact side, too. SBI's got that massive branch network, especially in rural areas. How are they using that to help people?
Well, those customer service points we mentioned, over 80,000 of them, those are key. They're bringing basic banking services to communities that might not have a traditional bank branch nearby.
So it's about access, basically.
Yeah, giving people access to deposits, withdrawals, even microloans, helping them participate in the financial system.
Empowering people, that's great.
And they're also pushing government schemes like the Yana, the one that aims to give every household a bank account.
Oh, right, I've heard of that. It's about financial inclusion, right, bringing everyone into the fold.
Exactly. And SBI is playing a big role in making that happen. They're also doing stuff in healthcare, sanitation, like mobile medical units for remote areas, helping with sanitation infrastructure in schools.
Wow, so they're really going beyond just banking.
They are. They're using their resources to try and address some of India's biggest social challenges.
It's almost like they're a social institution as much as a financial one.
Yeah, you could say that. Their size and reach give them a lot of responsibility, and it seems like they're taking that seriously.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. SBI's digital dominance, their sustainability efforts, their social impact. It's a pretty impressive picture overall.
It is. They're definitely a force to be reckoned with.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll take a look at SBI's outlook for the rest of FY25. What are the challenges and opportunities they're facing? How does their performance tie into the bigger picture of the Indian economy?
Stay tuned. It's going to be interesting to see what the future holds.
Okay, so we've looked at the numbers, dug into the digital side, even talked about SBI's efforts on sustainability and social impact.
Now we got to zoom out, right?
Ah,
See how SBI's story fits into the bigger picture of the Indian economy. What's it all telling us?
yeah, it's not just about one bank, is it? SBI is so big, they're practically a mini economy themselves.
Exactly. So their performance this quarter, I'd say it's a pretty positive sign, especially that strong credit growth we talked about.
Right, they're lending a lot more money. That means people and businesses are borrowing to invest and grow.
Exactly. It suggests there's confidence in the future. People wouldn't be taking out loans if they thought things were going to tank.
And on the flip side, all those deposits flowing into SBI, that also points to a healthy savings rate, right?
Exactly. People are putting money aside, which means they're feeling secure enough to save for the future. And that's good for the economy as a whole, provides the capital for investment and growth.
So SBI's success is kind of intertwined with India's success.
Definitely. You can't really separate them.
Okay, but let's be real, there are always challenges, right? Global uncertainty, inflation, interest rates, all that stuff could throw a wrench in the works.
Oh, absolutely. No one's immune to those external forces. Global slowdown could mean less demand for credit, right? And if inflation keeps rising, interest rates might have to go up too, which can squeeze profits.
So it's not all sunshine and roses, even with a great Q2 behind them. What's SBI doing to prepare for those potential headwinds?
Well, they're focusing on a few key things. Doubling down on their digital capabilities is a big one. Trying to get even more agile and efficient.
Makes sense. They're already a leader in that space. Might as well keep pushing.
Right. Gotta stay ahead of the curve. Plus, being digital helps them reach more customers, offer more personalized services, all while keeping costs down. That's crucial in a competitive market.
And of course, risk management is huge.
Oh, yeah. Those provisions we talked about, that's key. Being cautious is definitely smart, especially with all the uncertainty out there.
They're basically building up a fortress ready for whatever economic storm might hit.
Exactly. That kind of stability is reassuring for investors and for customers too.
And what about all their efforts on sustainability and social impact? Does that factor into their future strategy?
Oh, absolutely. ESG, environmental, social, governance. Those are the buzzwords everyone's talking about these days. Investors and customers, they want to support businesses that are doing good in the world.
So it's not just a feel-good thing, it's actually good for business too.
Exactly. SBI is doing a lot in renewable energy, financial inclusion, reducing their own impact. It all adds up. Shows they're thinking long term, building a sustainable business model.
So they're not just a bank, they're almost like a responsible corporate citizen, you could say.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They're leveraging their power and influence to try and make a positive difference.
Okay, but they're not operating in a vacuum, right? There's a whole bunch of other banks out there, plus all those fintech startups nipping at their heels. How's SBI holding up against the competition?
Well, their size is a big advantage, obviously. They've got the resources, the brand recognition, but they're not just relying on that. They're innovating too. Yono is a prime example. It's attracting new customers, especially younger ones, who are all about digital.
They're not letting those fintech startups run away with the market.
Exactly. They're fighting back with their own tech. Plus, they've got strengths those startups don't have, like that huge branch network, especially in rural areas.
Reaching the masses, that's key in India.
Totally. But it's not all easy sailing, of course. There are definitely challenges ahead.
Like what?
Well, managing their asset quality is always going to be a balancing act, especially if the economy takes a downturn. They got to be careful with those loans, make sure they don't turn into bad debts.
And those fintechs, they're not going away either.
Nope. They're going to keep pushing the boundaries, so SBI needs to stay agile and innovative to keep up.
It's a race to the top.
It is. And then there's the whole regulatory landscape, always changing, always complex. Staying compliant while still innovating, that's a tough needle to thread.
Lots of moving parts. But from what we've seen, SBI seems pretty well equipped to handle whatever comes their way.
I agree. They've got a strong foundation, a clear vision, and they're not afraid to adapt and evolve. That's a recipe for success in any industry, especially banking.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. SBI's Q2 performance, their digital strategy, their sustainability efforts, we've covered a lot.
We have. It's a complex story, but I think we've managed to unpack it pretty well.
Hopefully our listeners agree. But before we sign off, I want to leave everyone with something to think about. SBI is such a powerful force in India, right? They're not just a business. They have a huge impact on society as a whole.
True.
So given that, what role should they play in tackling some of India's biggest challenges? Poverty, inequality, climate change. We've seen they're doing some good work in those areas, but could they do more? What do you think?
That's a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
Something for all of us to think about, not just SBI.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.